Hi, welcome to Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson, and my guest today is the Foreign Minister of one of the European Union's smaller member states, but one which has been making its voice heard regarding the war in Ukraine. It is Lithuania. It's also one of the few EU states that shares a land border with Russian territory in the shape of Russia's exclave of Kaliningrad, to be precise. Gabrielius Landsbergis, thank you very much for being with us on the programme.
Hello, my pleasure.
I'd like to start off with some news from the last couple of days. Finland's President and Prime Minister announcing on Thursday that they want their country to apply for NATO membership without delay. For our viewers, Lithuania is also a NATO member and Finland's neighbour across the Baltic Sea. Mr. Landsbergis, you personally welcomed this move by Finland. Why?
Well, first of all, that it will make not just Finland safer and more secure in face of any possible Russian aggression, but also the whole Baltic region, which Lithuania and other Baltic states are a part of. So this is probably why you've seen not just Lithuanian politicians, but also from Latvia and Estonia really welcoming this historic decision made by the Finnish government and the president.
The Russian foreign minister's reaction, however, saying, and I quote, Russia will be forced to take retaliatory steps, both of a military, technical and other nature in order to stop the threats to its national security that arise in this regard. Do you see an argument that Finland and indeed Europe could be less safe because of Helsinki's decision?
No, quite the opposite. I'm absolutely convinced 100% that the region, the Baltic region, will be safer and NATO will be stronger, because Finland and Sweden are true military powers, regional military powers. So I think that they can really strengthen not just this part of the region, but Europe, but also the whole NATO. Where I would look for the possible issues, for the possible retaliation, is further decreased sovereignty of Belarus. This is one of the areas where Russia could retaliate, further pressuring down on Lukashenko and trying to what could be called an annexation of the country.
And do you fear that that could have repercussions then for Lithuania as a neighbouring state of Belarus?
Well, definitely. I mean, if Belarus would be annexed to the Russian territory as a sort of a political retaliation to Finland and Sweden joining NATO, that would increase the border with Russia considerably. But then again, we need to send a very clear message that nothing will be deterred. Nobody will be deterred by Russia's political or otherwise statements. We are moving within our pace and by our people's decisions. And we have to be prepared for possible steps and take them seriously. Mm-hmm.
Now, just earlier in the week, there was Putin had the Russian military parading in Moscow for what's known as Victory Day in Russia, but no great declarations of any kind of victory by the Russian president, as some had been expecting. What do you believe the Russian president's game plan is in Ukraine at this point?
Well, we've been listening quite attentively to President Putin's speech, and what we heard was explanations, explanations about why did he need to start the war that is not going well at the moment. And when you think about it, he does not need to explain it to us in the West. He does not need to explain it to his own people, because 85% of his population, as a poll shows, support the war in Ukraine. So there is likelihood that he is trying to explain this to his inner, smaller or greater circle. That means where the actual unhappiness or disapproval with Putin's decision might be coming from. So this is indeed a very, very interesting development that not many of us have been expecting.
I'd like to talk about a specific development in Lithuania. The parliament in your country recently declared Russia a terrorist state and declared that its invasion of Ukraine amounts to genocide. Can I just firstly ask what this declaration is based on?
Well, based on, first and foremost, about the information that we are receiving from Ukraine when they are recovering the previously occupied territories. First of all, around Kiev, now further to Kharkiv. We're seeing what Russia was trying to accomplish there. not just a simple occupation, what is, I mean, if we can call it simple, but also mass attacking and mass killing of civilians, unarmed civilians. So these crimes, and when they are based on nationality, and that means that only Ukrainians are getting killed, they can be, we can apply a term of genocide in this perspective.
So then, what does this declaration mean in practical terms for Russia, for Lithuania's actions or attitudes towards Russia?
Well, first of all, it paves the way for Lithuania's political position towards the current regime that is running Russia. What we want to say is that it doesn't matter if the bullets stop flying, if the war activities are over, if the shelling is over, we will still be considering the current regime as a genocidal regime, as a one that has a terrorist tendencies towards its neighbors. And it also points a direction that when we're saying to our NATO allies that we need more attention to the security situation on this side of NATO, that the insecurity situation is coming from the regime itself, not just from the specific actions that are being taken on a tactical level in Ukraine.
Let's talk about how the European Union is reacting as a whole. At the time of recording this interview, the European Commission is still trying to get all 27 EU states on board with an oil embargo. We're led to believe that Hungary is the one country that's holding out on this. Its government spokesman, Mr. Kovac, said an embargo would ruin the Hungarian economy. What do you make of this?
Well, so far, Europe and, probably even broader Western alliance was quite successful in maintaining unanimity when it came to sanctions, when it came to condemnations of Russian actions, and even to assisting Ukraine. At this point, what we're seeing is that European Union decision makers are being held hostage by a single country that is not only ruining unanimity, but also not providing any possibility of finding consensus. So it's a bad time for Europe. Europe is weaker because of that. And I think we definitely, in order to go back to where we were a few weeks ago, we need to find the consensus, and I'm still hoping that Budapest will be responsible in their decisions.
I mean, is it possible that other elements of this planned sanctions package can still go ahead? Not the full oil embargo, but other things that have been planned?
Well, the other things, I do not think that they would consist as a package, so to say. That means that this is too little laid out on the paper without the oil embargo. That would be considered the whole package. So I think we still need to sit at the table. We still need to find solutions, and we still need to keep working on it.
And I mean, this apparent disunity among EU members about this embargo, we've also seen elements of disunity on other issues as well. Is it perhaps a bit of a gift to Vladimir Putin?
Well, one could say yes. I think that he was very surprised before when 5 packages of sanctions were adopted and quite fast without the showing of any major discord within the European Union. So obviously that he might say that this plays into his hands. We need not to forget also that the gas and oil that reaches countries like Hungary and others goes through Ukraine. So I think that it merits thinking of a plan. How can we assist Ukraine in decoupling itself from Russian oil and gas? And that would basically solve the whole sanction question altogether.
OK, Gabrielis Landsbergis, that is all we have time for, unfortunately. But thank you very much for being with us here on Talking Europe. Thank you. Now, before we close off our programme today, time for our regular fake news check. This week, a claim from the British Prime Minister about how many refugees his country has taken in.
Is Boris Johnson right to say the UK has done more to help vulnerable people fleeing conflict than any other country in Europe? This is what the British Prime Minister claimed in March when a member of the UK Parliament asked him about help the UK has given to Ukrainian refugees.
We have taken more vulnerable people fleeing theatres of conflict than any other country in Europe.
So what's he actually referring to? His claim appears to be based on the narrow definition of resettled refugees, which is a specific situation and separate from the asylum process. It refers uniquely to refugees identified by the United Nations prior to them travelling to a country. We can compare official EU data from before the UK left the bloc. It shows that between 2015 and 2019, the United Kingdom did indeed resettle more refugees than any other EU member state, just under 24,700 refugees. But Boris Johnson talked about taking in vulnerable people fleeing theatres of conflict. This would suggest asylum seekers too. From 2015 to 2019, Germany made nearly 1 million positive rulings on first instance asylum cases, compared to the UK, who made 57,560. That's around 5% of Germany's total. For Ukrainian refugees, by April the 15th, under 2 schemes, the UK had issued visas to 56,500 people. The EU has granted Ukrainians the right to stay in Europe for up to 3 years. Poland has already welcomed 2.7 million Ukrainians and Germany over 300,000.
Well, that's it for this part of the programme. In part 2, in a few minutes' time, I'll be speaking to European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič about the latest movements in the ongoing post-Brexit saga. See you soon.